games. Shooty McBang Bang. Propaganda. Maybe a zombie? Welcome to Thrak Ops. Greetings, everybody! Welcome to another edition of Thrak Ops. It is me, Thrak. Hi. I know it's been a while. I've been busy. I went to Florida and back. That was a whole journey. Listen to 3DO if you want the details on that. But hi, yes, I'm back. I missed you guys. Hopefully you missed me. And it's a big one today for two reasons. One, we are finally touching the beginning of the true golden era for the series in Modern Warfare. But also, I have another guest. That's right. I couldn't solo this one. It was too big to do on my own. So I scoured the internet looking for the perfect person to talk about Modern Warfare Shooty Bang Bang, and I found the perfect man. You may know him. He is the one micro-celebrity in our little group. He's great. He's a Red Wings supporter, so boo on him. No, I'm just kidding. But it's Quest. Quest, how you doing, buddy?
Hi, Thrak. I'm doing great. Excited to talk about the shoots.
Well, thank you. Thank you for joining me on this. We're recording this in the morning because of just timing conflict, schedule-y stuff. So I think it's probably the earliest and either of us have ever recorded a podcast.
Yeah, definitely. My brain is functioning at this time, but it's usually for work only and not putting together cohesive thoughts about video games. So this will be fun. I will enjoy it. So.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So today we are looking at, as I had mentioned, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, released November 5th, 2007 for the PC, PS3, and the Xbox 360. And it was developed by, obviously, Infinity Ward. It is their third game in the series after Call of Duty 1 and Call of Duty 2. Now, I guess before we get into all the developmental stuff, I put it a little bit further down. But let's Quest. What are your memories of this game coming out? You're a little bit older than me, so you might have more coherent thoughts about it than I do. I was in middle school when this came out.
I was definitely not in middle school when this came out. I was in my my 20s or something. We'll go with
Yeah.
So the 360 was my first online system. I didn't play any original Halo on the original Xbox. So I had dove headfirst in online. We were playing tons of Gears of War 1, and then Forza Motorsport 2 had great online community. So my whole friends list was always looking for something cool to play together. I remember seeing an advertisement, probably a Game Informer one, for this upcoming. And I was a huge fan of Counter-Strike. We had also played a lot of Counter-Strike on PC when we were a little younger. And I remember going to Walmart at 1 in the morning and just buying this on a whim. I had the weekend off. And by the next morning, I had stayed up all night, and I had already messaged all my friends and told them to get it, and it was great. And that was kind of the end of it. This is probably one of my most played games, hours-wise, mostly because of the multiplayer. But the mechanics, the RPG system, it was a shooter where you could earn stuff and level up and earn new guns, and it was cool. It scratched all those little itches. So it was, other than being of a subject matter that I don't fall in love with, it hit all the points for something to play online. So
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, the multiplayer, we'll touch on it a little bit further in the episode, but yeah, it was very revolutionary for the time, because it was something that, if you think about it, so many games these days do the RPG mechanic thing, like in shooters and in other multiplayer games, as a way to, as you said, keep people locked in. And yeah, that was a huge thing that kind of became its legacy. But also, I think, the campaign does still bring up conversation in many ways, some good and some bad. But, we'll get to that. So yeah, my memory is it was middle school. I had already played Call of Duty 2 at that point and really enjoyed it. I was well aware of the series, even though I don't think like Call of Duty wasn't a big thing yet. Like it was the first couple games were successful. They had sold well and had good reviews, but they weren't massive successes the way we would view Call of Duty as now. Like I think Halo was bigger. I'm trying to think. Like probably Counter-Strike was a little bit as well. Like Battlefield was making its runs at the time. So to kind of see this game really break through to where it was the beginning of the series going mainstream. Like I don't think this is where the series went mainstream. I think it was the beginning of it. I would say by Modern Warfare 2, like the series was like the number one game, I would say. But kind of the momentum starts here, which is why it's, the beginning of the golden era, as I said. So like development of the game, there's not a huge amount of stuff on development for it. Funnily enough, when Infinity Ward first got into doing Call of Duty, they wanted to do Modern Warfare much sooner. I guess they had toyed with the idea for the original Call of Duty, but there was like one developer who kind of said that offhand in an interview, so there's not a lot of confirmation on that. But it is confirmed that Infinity Ward wanted Call of Duty 2 to be a Modern Warfare game. I think, by 2003, 2004, the historical World War II shooter was running its course or had run its course by that point, because they started with Medal of Honor in 99, and those were really good. But you could see from 99 to like 03, 04, you can only retell the same story so many times before it gets kind of like, we've done this, we've been here. And even if Call of Duty was like gameplay wise, some of, if not the best of the genre back then, they recognized that we have to do something different, and because it was, you had that, and then you also had all the sci-fi shooters like Halo, Doom. Well, I think Doom was in a break at this point. What year was Doom 3?
That is
like
not my
2001?
series. So, like, I haven't played much Doom
Okay.
pretty much since, like, Windows Doom 1 and 2. So, or Mac.
Well, you're missing out. Some of the modern Dooms are fantastic. But you had the, I know Quake 4 was a big deal for early 360, so you kind of had that historical and sci-fi shooter, and it left a gap for kind of modern stuff. There was a big gap right there. And I believe Battlefield did modern combat in like, Battlefield 2 was, I believe it was like in 05. So there was kind of the beginning of that. And then outside of that, you had stuff like the Tom Clancy games, Counter-Strike, as mentioned before, doing modern combat, but like the Tom Clancy games are much more like tactical based, like strategy and all that. Like I've tried playing the original Rainbow Six. No, thank you. It just doesn't do it for me.
I didn't have a PS2, but I had.
Though I do love.
I did have
Vegas
friends
game.
that played like SOCOM and said that online was great.
Yeah, SOCOM. Yeah, I've heard great things about SOCOM. People keep saying they should bring SOCOM back, though I don't think it would hit the same way.
Agreed.
But who knows? So, but yes, Infinity Ward was like, hey, we want the next one to be Modern Warfare. They said that to Activision, and Activision, I think, was afraid of that because it was kind of an untapped market, and they weren't sure of how successful that would be. And, probably real-world issues as well were a part of it. So they were just like, hey, make another World War II shooter, and if this one is successful, we'll let you do a modern one. So they did Call of Duty 2, did really well. So Infinity Ward came back and said, now can we do it? And Activision was like, okay, sure. Yeah, you can go ahead and do it. So they worked on it for 2 years while Treyarch, did the off year with Call of Duty 3. And during the development, actually originally they were making like a concept for another World War II shooter, I think because they were afraid that Activision were going to like force them to go back. So I think they just kind of had it in the background in case they needed it. But also, Quest brought this up before we started, or reminded me, because I was aware of this, that Infinity Ward were also working on a sci-fi shooter that was just dubbed HK for Halo Killer. And that's interesting because the original Call of Duty was codenamed MOH Killer, Medal of Honor Killer, and it succeeded in that. So I could see why they would think, oh, we could probably do the same with Halo, even though it was a much different market and everything. And like Halo 2 was such a huge success. And, you know, when this game came out in '07, the big game everyone was hyped for was Halo 3. Like that was the big game at the time. And I forget when that came out in '07. It must have been around the same time, I think.
I think it was a little later,
at all?
because I remember playing a ton of this and being to level 50 before Halo came out, and then we bounced back and forth with our online, but I I have never been super into Halo. I like it because I like playing games with my friends, but like
Yeah,
I would like if people weren't
that's
online,
fair.
I would just gravitate right back to Modern Warfare again. And so, but it had to have come out before, unless I didn't get it till
Yeah,
way
yeah.
later. I mean, that could have been too. So.
Yeah, it's possible because I mean I remember seeing like that famous commercial with Halo 3 where it was like all of the like all the like the plastic figurines that are like still in the middle of battle and all that, and they were really hyping the shit out of it and thinking that this was going to be the year of Halo because it was finish the fight and all that stuff. I mean, I played Halo 3 at the time and I never got it. I've never been a Halo guy, weirdly enough. Even though I'm an Xbox guy, I'm not the biggest Halo guy. They're fine, but you know, I much prefer Gears and Forza and all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, but this kind of came out and you know, I think exceeded all expectations for it. Like I think they expected it to be a success because the last few games had been, but I mean the Metacritic score for this ranges between a 92 and a 94 on the main systems, and I think it was by November of 2013 the game sold almost 60 million copies, which is very good. Won all kinds of awards, and you know, as we'd said, it was the game that launched the series into the mainstream. You know, like I remember at school, this was the game everybody was talking about, and I think it probably had more to do with the multiplayer than the single player, but I do think the single player had something to do with it, especially by this point. Call of Duty had, even though it was still coming out on PC and it started as a PC franchise, this game it kind of gravitated to the consoles. It became a console shooter first, I'd say.
I remember, so like you said, multiplayer predominantly. I remember playing through the campaign maybe one time just to get the achievements when I had originally bought it, and then never touching it again
Yeah.
other than to talk about it with friends. Because, you know, we were all talking about, and we'll get to it, but like, you know, everybody talked about one shot, one kill, and all gillied up in the middle of the campaign, and
Oh
how
yeah.
yeah,
Love
and
those
how that was
missions.
like the coolest ever. I'm like, yeah, man, but like, is it as cool as prestiging and then like prestiging again and then and then prestiging again? Like, and yeah, if
Yeah,
without
yeah.
the multiplayer, it wouldn't have had you know, the longevity, which is kind of why we were talking about the other games that had, you know, fallen off, like Battlefield. When the multiplayer was good, like in Bad Company, when the multiplayer was good, the games are good, and look at what's happened to them since then. They you know, tried to
Yeah.
add so much to it, and without really good multiplayer, and without, you know, a lack of loot boxes and other things that have been integrated into the series, like it loses players. So like the campaign was cool, but it wasn't the selling point.
Like Battlefield at this like at this Yeah, like Battlefield at this point was, I think it was multiplayer only. I don't think there was a campaign at all, really. Or I think 2 kind of introduced it. But yeah, like the multiplayer, it was kind of like, you know, how Counter-Strike was
Yeah.
basically, which is you just get into a match, you do the match, and that was it. You know, you didn't really think about it beyond that, which is a very old school way of doing multiplayer. And for Call of Duty 4 to, you know, look at it and say, oh, we could do more with this, you know, is really kind of the revolutionary thing where everybody took from it after that, and like Battlefield as well, because I think the success of Call of Duty led to Battlefield getting way more successful with 3 and the Bad
Yeah.
Company games, and 4, like that was the peak of the series, and I think, you know, Call of Duty helped to boost them up, and now honestly I think they helped to boost a lot of shooter series to become more popular right after it, you know. But again, we'll get to the multiplayer in a little bit, but before we do, I'd say we need to talk about you know, the single player campaign. So we're gonna do a whole plot synopsis. We'll talk about some things and all that good stuff. So, so I'm gonna take a drink of water and we'll get into it. So, the plot for this game, while being in a current day setting, it does not directly tell the tale of any war. You know, because this is 2007, it was being developed in 2005, so the Iraq War and the Afghanistan conflict were still very much in the news at the time. But this was by Bush's second term, and I think that's when favorability for them had shifted very much into the negative. And I think Infinity Ward, they're trying to toe the line with this game. I think that's a fair thing to say, because they're not directly quoting anything or, you know, referencing anybody in real life or anything, but they're doing it in a way that is, you can kind of fill in the gaps to be like, oh, this is meant to be here, this is meant to be that, and they're trying to avoid controversy with this game. And I think at the time they definitely did avoid it, because I think some people forget back then there was a bunch of media and like entertainment that were directly pulling from Iraq and Afghanistan. So it didn't feel like it stood out or anything. But I think it probably stands out more now because the series has become so popular that people look back at it now and kind of look at it with a more kind of a hindsight eyes. But, you know, whatever. So the story follows a joint campaign of the United States Marine Corps and the British SAS in Russia, because they're in the midst of a civil war between the government, or the group of loyalists, and the Russian ultranationalists who want to return to the glory of the USSR or the Soviet Union. Which this actually does have real-life connections, because there have been numerous protests and attempts to bring the Soviet Union back ever since it collapsed in the 90s. It's almost as if you ruin the economy, people want to go back to the way it was.
Weird, right?
It's crazy.
And they said, in Infinity Ward said they wanted to be
know.
apolitical. You know, in a couple different interviews you can find online, they said this doesn't represent any war. But I mean, come on, when the bad guys are, vague Middle Eastern people and or Russia, it's not apolitical. Like, they're still like preying on the teenagers who know that those are the big bads, because that's what George W. Bush told them. And so, I mean, even for them to say that we're not representing any specific war or world events, I mean, they totally are. They just have to do it in a way where they're not using, names as a sense. So when you say apolitical, it's because we don't say, well, at the time, Putin, but I mean, he's in the quotes, the death quotes of the game, so it's not like they also didn't say his name. So
That's true. That is true. Yeah. And I think a lot of that comes down to Americans not really understanding the term apolitical and really what it implies when, like, you can be apolitical about things, but when you're making a war shooter or like, something with war in it, war is inherently political. Like, the only reason wars happen is because of like political stuff. So, but I think some people struggle with that. But anyways, as this is happening, there is a coup in the Middle East being led by a man named Khalid al-Assad. I hope I'm saying his name right. Even though as a character, he's really not much of anything. He's just, a placeholder for Saddam Hussein. Like, he looks very much like him. He doesn't really say much or do much. He just kind of represents this kind of stereotypical Middle Eastern bad guy, basically. But you start the game off as Sergeant John Soap McTavish, who's a new recruit into the SAS for the first mission, FNG, which is your training mission. Quest, what does FNG
I don't know,
stand
Thrak.
for?
Go ahead and tell me.
It stands for fucking new guy.
Yeah.
Makes sense, right? But anyways, this is your basic training where, you get acquainted with the controls and they introduce you to all the members of the squad, like Gaz and of course Captain Price. While Captain Price had been in the early Infinity Ward Call of Duty games, it feels like this version of Price is like the canon version, or like this is when you think of Price, this is who you think of. I mean, I would argue that the earlier Captain Prices, they're probably like weird descendants, I guess, if you want to get crazy with the lore. I'm sure somebody has out there. But you get introduced to him, and he says the all-time classic quote. I say this one all the time, so I just think it's funny, and that's,
"What the hell kind of name is Soap, eh? How'd a muppet like you pass selection?"
I always like that one. It's a good way of giving him just a little bit of character, right? And then you do that training mission with where it simulates the cargo ship, and you have to get through it in. I'll say I think the time is 19 seconds, but you can get it under that. What was the
I
best
did
you
it 3
ever
or
did
4
in that?
times, and I think it was around 20 something. Like I was like, am I going to do this all afternoon to see if I remember being good at this game? And but this is the first game that I remember, at least once again in my 20s or whatever, we're going to say how old I was when this came out, where like the training mission actually felt like good. Like it wasn't just shoot these targets, which I mean it did have that, but even that portion where it's like, all right, now shoot the targets through these wooden barricades. I'm like, wait, what? Like I'm not going to be, I'm not going to be impeded by just some random pole sticking out of the ground to stop me from headshotting somebody, or people aren't going to be able to hide behind the flimsiest piece of, cardboard box or whatever to stop bullets. I can shoot through things. And that was like, learning that during the training mission was awesome. Because it's like, well, that opens up a whole new like branch of things I can do. I can just pelt walls over and over and hope that I kill a guy. Awesome.
Yeah, it makes you go like, oh, what walls can you shoot through to take out enemies? But it also makes you think, oh, but the enemy can do it to you as well. So it creates a more sort of realistic type of immersion for sure. And yeah, that like little simulation bits, I used to do it a bunch back in the day. I think the best I ever got was like 18 seconds. But that's like putting in a lot of work to get it to that point. Like to me, it's that whole section to me is reminiscent of like why I don't like speedrunning. Cause it's like it feels like I've tried it to where it's like you put so much time into it just to get the best score. And it's like, is it really worth it at the end of the day? And you feel good about yourself, but it's like, but I wasted like 3 hours to get this 18-second result. But some people have fun with it, and that's all fine and dandy, right? But anyways, you do all that, and then you head into the first mission called Crew Expendable, where it's a famous early mission where you're on the helicopter, and you put on your masks, and then you rappel down onto the cargo ship, and you kind of stealth kill your way through the whole thing in order to get like a random package that's in a random shipping container. You're not told what it is. They just say, hey, go get it. And then you get there and you find out the package is plutonium. And you're like, well, how the fuck are we going to get this thing out of here, right? But as you're figuring that out, a bunch of unknown ships, or a bunch of unknown jet fighters, they're probably MiGs, I think, attack the cargo ship. So you just grab the clipboard. I don't know why you necessarily grab the clipboard. I guess it has the itinerary on it. I guess
you're supposed
to
get whatever proof you can.
It probably just has all the details.
You have some proof that.
Yeah, and then you book it. Yeah, and then you book it out of there after Captain Price gets in your face and says, "We are leaving." And then you get out. It's a really great first mission because it shows how different this game is compared to the rest of them. Like this is like a stealth insurgent type of mission where it favors you, it's favoring stealth and being more quiet and not being just loud blowing everything up. I mean, you are blowing everything up, but it's in a much different scenario than what you've seen before and with some of the missions later on. So it does a good job of establishing the new vibes that the game's going to have.
For me, it set the tone that, wow, I'm going to like these SAS missions way more than I like the USMC missions where it is the exact opposite and what you're talking about, which is just wave after wave of enemy in crowded, desert streets.
Yeah, and I think it's intentional as well.
Yes.
There's a clear contrast in that for sure. But after you do this mission, there's that little bit. It's called the coup, where you play the president, whose name is Tassir al-Fulani. I probably said that wrong. And it's that part where you're thrown into the backseat of a car, and then you're looking around and seeing, people getting, shot in the streets and all this crazy shit, and a dude scowling at you from the front passenger seat. You don't know who he is yet. And then you get dragged into it's almost like a Roman arena type situation where there's like a crowd of people at the top, and you see Al-Assad and some random guy giving him a gun, who we'll find out who he is later, and then Al-Assad points the gun at you and shoots you and kills you. And immersing you in first person to do that was very bold, but I liked it. As a kid, it kind of freaked me out, just because the idea of seeing a gun from that side is scary, as it should be. So for them to do that again, it was bold. And Infinity Ward, they're taking the risks. They're committed to this.
Yeah, I like the idea of feel the action first and then find out, because you don't know who you are. They just tell you immediately after you're dead, which is cool.
Yeah.
Like, what is going on? The guy from Grand Theft Auto 4 is in the passenger seat. Like, where am I going? Like, who am I? Like,
yeah, well, that wasn't out yet. That was another year away. Yeah, he does look like Nico though, but you're not going bowling, unfortunately.
Nico, it's Roman. Let's go bowling.
Yeah, so now that was the prologue, and now we are hitting Act 1. And Act 1 starts with the mission Blackout, which sees the SAS team rescue a man named Nikolai, who supplied you with the intel for the Crew Expendable mission. And this mission, it's interesting because it feels like you're kind of on the perimeter of a big battle, because you're sneaking through houses, trying to find him, and then all the shit goes down, but it goes down, it's really far away, and so it's the first time you get to snipe. So you get a sniper rifle and you start sniping people, and you're going around the perimeter of the battle, which gives it a new sort of feeling again, that you're not that the SAS guys aren't going to get fully immersed in it, but it kind of lets you view the battle from a different perspective. But then after this, we get our first mission with the United States Marine Corps, which they use the assassination of the president as a reason just to go balls out invasion, just completely, helicopters, ships, the whole nine. They're like, we have our excuse, we're going in. Charlie don't surf, right? And for this, we play a guy named Sergeant Paul Jackson. And so we land somewhere in the Middle East, and once again, you're doing the stuff that you did in the earlier Call of Duty games, it's house to house, urban combat, fighting just waves and waves of enemies that'll constantly reappear unless you move forward. Just trying to get to a TV station because you're hearing Al-Assad's speech getting broadcasted, and they're like, oh, it must be at a TV station, right? And so you're going through, you find this big TV station, and once again, you're blowing shit up. It is, balls out American fighting, right? But when you get to the room where they think he's in, they kick the door down, and womp womp, he isn't there. It was just a loop. In fact, I think one of the army guys says, he's like, oh, fucking military intelligence or something.
Score 1 for military intelligence.
He quotes that, which I think is interesting, and a little snipe at the army for doing what they're doing, in my opinion. But from there we go to the next mission, the Bog, which is you're just defending a tank from being assaulted, pretty much. There's really not much. Trying to think, I think this is the one where you get to use the javelin to blow up the tanks on the highway, I believe. Which that was cool to see, that the javelin is there, this real fancy type of rocket launcher thing that was new at the time. But yeah, these all just feel like your typical modern military shooter stuff, Again, they're establishing a a obvious difference between the U.S. and the U.K. mission sets. Again, I like that because it almost shows like this is where they want to go, but they still have to do what people expect them to do. Because if it was all like stealthy SAS stuff, I think people wouldn't have liked it as much.
Yeah, I get that. It's just if we're just talking about the gameplay of the single player campaign, though, you can tell like the way that they bulk up the enemy numbers in the American stuff, where if you don't, you can clear a room, but if you don't move forward, the room just kind of repopulates with enemies until you move forward. And that it doesn't.
Yep.
The SAS missions do a better, like, the magic trick, I guess. They do it better, where because the enemies are further away and you have more like slow movement and tactical stuff to do, it doesn't feel like you're just fighting waves of bodies until you move through a door. It feels like, well, if I snipe these guys and then slowly move up, that I'm progressing the mission. Where in this, it's very clear, especially in the TV station, like you talked about. If you don't move into the next room of the TV station, magically the guy that you just, popped his head or clicked on his face or his arm, 20 yards away there's another guy with the exact same, character model standing there again doing the same thing. So
yeah,
this is where it starts to break down for me between the good
and
missions and the bad ones. Where when there's cool stuff to do, it feels great because you're focusing on the cool stuff. But when it's just point and click on heads, it kind of you're just okay. Let's get to the next thing. I'm over this.
Yeah. I get that. And in the SAS missions, you definitely feel more like a group of people. Like it feels less one man army. Because really in Crew Expendable, you can go through the majority of that mission and kill maybe 2 people. Jumping ahead of myself a little bit, but in the remaster, there's like an achievement for like not reloading your gun once or just using your knife the whole way through. And really in Crew Expendable, if you just knife people the whole way, you'll be fine. Just the way it's set up. But anyway, we're heading back to the SAS because you save Nikolai, you get in the helicopter. And then Nikolai actually mentions that he thinks the U.S. Army is making a mistake doing their invasion. Again, just a little nod in there, I think. But you get shot down, the helicopter, and then you get like ambushed by a bunch of guys. There's like a helicopter chasing you, and you have to sort of make your way through. You find the Stinger missile to eventually destroy the helicopter, and this one feels like it is ramping up the action for the SAS stuff because now it's like, oh, now you are the ones who are being hunted by everything around you, and you're able to be saved just in time for the AC-130 gunship to come and get you, and that's when we start the famous or infamous AC-130 gunship mission, Death from Above, which is the one where it was kind of revolutionary at the time to do something that felt that sort of like stark, because all the Call of Duty games had some type of mission to break up the boots on the ground action, right? Like a lot of them would use like vehicle stuff, tank missions, whatever. Sometimes you'd be on a boat. But this time it's like, oh no, you're going to be like the little gunner for an AC-130 and you're just blowing shit up the whole way. You get 3 different types of shots that you can use, and they're like, don't hit our guys. They're the stroby ones. Don't hit the church. They give you these very specific instructions, and then you just kind of go through the whole mission. And it is a really interesting mission because, as I said, on the one hand, it, I think, does a really good job of showcasing what I imagine AC-130 gunships do. Like this feels very kind of cold and plain and just kind of showing it for what it is. And then finding out that it is a bit of a controversial mission, and I kind of understand why. And I think it is because of what like people's perception of it can be. You know what I mean? Because they're not. It feels like with this mission, they're not trying to sway your opinion one way or the other. They're just like, this is what AC-130 gunships do, and either you're fine with that or you're like, oh, this is like kind of gross and disgusting.
Yeah, if you don't think of an enormous 40 millimeter gun eradicating humans, it's cool because it's the power fantasy of they make sure to you do the whole thing in black and
Exactly.
white. You have there's no color, there's no blood, so you have your choice of the black filter or the white filter thermal thing, and they're very deadpan with all of the
Yeah.
it's like, oh, got him, oh, put that one on the high road, they like don't, it's not.
Eventually you'll get like a
Yeah,
ooh-ah
but
or
even
some,
then, like the cadence
marine
doesn't
bullshit,
switch.
yeah.
It's all the exact. It's like they're it's like baseball game commentators. They're just talking to each other. So like,
Yeah. Well, yeah. So it's interesting because I think the series would revisit this later because the further in we get to the series, the less I know. But I think they've done the AC-130 mission a couple times.
well, even
later
Modern
on,
Warfare
so
2 has it.
it'll be interesting to compare them.
Modern Warfare
Even
2,
what?
they had one eerily similar to that in the second Modern Warfare as well. Unless
I do not remember that, but I haven't played Modern Warfare 2 in since shortly after it came out. So my memory of that is very faded, but
you'll get
take
there.
your
You're
word
gonna
for that.
you're gonna be the group expert here pretty
be-
quickly as you rip through.
Yeah,
you have a ton
eventually,
of them
right?
here
Yeah.
in like a 5-year period.
It'll be interesting to compare. Yeah, and it'll be interesting to compare them back and forth. So yeah, but anyways, we get back to Jackson with the mission War Pig, which again is another kind of standard mission. Yeah, you're again going through houses, nothing that crazy. But now we hit another very well known mission from the campaign called Shock and Awe. So Shock and Awe, we start this. We're in a helicopter using like a mounted grenade launcher, attacking a city that Al Assad is believed to be in. We relieve a squad under heavy fire, but after a while, it's discovered there is a nuclear device in the city, and everyone is being extracted and being told, "Hey, get the fuck out! There's apparently a nuke here." But while this happens, one of your friendly helicopters gets shot down next to you, when you guys decide to land in order to do like a emergency rescue mission, even though they're saying, hey, if you do that, you will not be out of the blast zone. But nevertheless, you stage a real quick rescue to try to get them out. And then you do, and then as you're just getting out, the nuke goes off. Quest, tell me, what was your opinion on this whole bit, like when the nuke dropped?
I mean, honestly, I like it because up until this point in the game, like you said, we're following in the footsteps of a lot of other war games and first-person shooters and hero shooters, and there's always some, climax where, you defuse the bomb, in quotes, or you stop the, the bad guy from ending the world. So to finally like experience the bad guys, winning was cool. And to then experience it, you don't know right away because they do the like scroll and you see all the names of the people who have died and you see your name, Jackson's name on the screen, and you're like, oh wow, awesome or bad, I don't know yet. And then you get to experience walking out of the back of the helicopter and seeing the mushroom cloud and the the fire in the sky. It was, I mean, that's cool. It's cool to lose in a video game. Do I think that it's the best representation? Like we've all seen, they did kind of like Hollywood it, I guess is the best way to put it. When you see an actual nuclear bomb,
they could have done it worse.
We've seen Oppenheimer, or most of us have probably seen Oppenheimer now. Like
I have not seen
probably
Oppenheimer.
See it. It's pretty good. Or
I should. It's on.
But
on
I
my
mean, like
watch list.
a nuclear blast is like a shockwave. It's not like Michael Bay explosions all over the place and everything's on fire. It's eradication. So it was nice that they didn't linger on it too long. You got out of the helicopter, you fall out, you kind of just like saunter around, half dead, and then it's over. And you see the huge mushroom cloud in the background, and that's cool. So I like that they didn't stay there too long. They gave you just long enough to know that the Marines may have fucked up here.
Exactly. I remember when I was playing this game for the first time, I was thinking, oh, there's no way they would actually do that. Like in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, we're gonna find some way to stop them or whatever. But yeah, you don't. And it was kind of a shocking moment to see them, go that far. And then right after that, you get the aftermath, which is somehow you're not completely dead right away. You kind of crawl, as you said, you crawl out of the helicopter, you kind of roam around and look at stuff for about a minute, and then you die. And yeah, as a kid, I remember it being incredibly shocking and like, holy shit, like I'd never seen a game do something like this before. And it definitely left an impression, I think. Not just on this game, but I think kind of in the entire series as well, because it gets referenced later and all that. And I've heard some retrospective takes on like this game, on that mission or that like nuke. Some people saying, oh, they're using that to sort of like justify the American invasion in the first place, even though I would kind of concur with that, or I wouldn't agree, because I feel like the nuke dropping is almost them trying to say like they shouldn't have done this. Like Nikolai, as he said earlier in the game, he's like, I think the Americans are making a mistake. And sure enough, they do make a mistake. 30,000 of them get, blown away basically. So, but it leads into a point that I want to talk about after the story. So we'll get to that. But it was a very big moment to see this happen. Though apparently in development, there was one developer who wanted Aftermath to be like a mission where you somehow survive and like shoot people as like a mission. And because I think some of them were afraid to go as far as they wanted to with the nuke, where it's like, no, this character dies. Like, that's it, Some of them were like, no, we need to, like, have them, like, shoot through the nuclear wasteland. And it's like, that would have been stupid. I don't think that would have worked at all. That would have come off way too, like, silly and video gamey and kind of taken away from that moment.
When you played the remaster, I did not. I decided I was just going to play the original game and let you do that. It's not that I'm not interested in it, but this is the way I wanted to re-experience it. Did they change this mission at all in the remaster, or did it stay the same?
So I'll go in more detail the remaster in general later, but for this mission in the remaster, it's changed slightly, and by slightly, like the cutscenes are a little bit different. Like when the nuke goes off, there's a little bit more of a the person who flies out of the copter. You're actually trying to save them before they get flown out of the copter, and then when you come out of the copter and you're just kind of roaming around, you see another dude who's like in the exact same state as you before he drops dead, which I think was them wanting to give you sort of a visual representation of what you looked like. Like that's what you look like, basically. So they try to, I think, hammer it a little bit more, with just little extra detail, but not enough to ruin it. In some ways, I think they actually kind of improve it, but, But overall, I do like the remaster. Anyways. But yeah, that's the end of Act 1. And so we begin Act 2 with Safe House, where I believe it is Nikolai who's like, oh no, Al-Assad is here in this country over here, which feels a little like, wait, what? So like the Marines thought he was over here in the Middle East, but no, he's actually over here in this completely different country. And it's like, is that just them doing a video gamey keep the plot moving? Or again, is them trying to say like, oh, the army is dumb for doing what they're doing? Which is sort of a theme in the back of my head with this whole game. Is it just that like, oh, all the evasion stuff is stupid, and look at like all the horrible mistakes they're making and costing lives for? Like, is that something they're trying to say? I don't know. But maybe.
To me, I just got the feeling where maybe the writing was just a little lacking, and they were trying to find a way to tie together why were we in the Middle East, and now why is everything Russia? Why do we have a second bad guy? Why was the first bad guy not the biggest bad guy? It was just kind of the in-between, the miasma, the weird stuff, and it was fine. It's not like it was jarring. It's just, oh, I guess we're over here now. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to reignite a Cold War tensions because, the West loves to do that. But anyways, you get assistance from the Russian loyalists against the ultra-nationalists for the Safe House mission, which is this big map where you go through like a church and all these different houses to see where Al-Assad is, and he isn't in any of them except the one at the very back, of course, right? You go into the farmhouse, Price basically tackles him to the ground, beats the shit out of him, ties him up to a chair, and then is basically like, how'd you get the bomb? Doing the normal stuff, right? But then I think it's Al-Assad's phone like goes off, and like Gaz picks it up, and then he's like, oh, Price, you want to take this? Price, answers the phone, hears it for like a few seconds, puts the phone down, and then just shoots Al-Assad in the head. So I guess he's done. We're done with that, I guess. Wipe it clean. And then they're like, oh, who was that on the phone? Why'd you do that? And he's just like, it's
Zakhaev. Imran Zakhaev.
And that triggers the flashback to, I would say this is probably the most well-known mission in the game, would you say?
Yeah.
Or probably the most beloved
Just before
mission.
we go to this great mission, did they ever say why the opening game Big Bad is just standing in a barn in the middle of nowhere with like no support around him whatsoever? Like there's no like reason for him to Al-Assad to be in a countryside town in a barn, like not in a basement bunkered up, or not.
Yeah, like in Russian territory where there's like a civil war happening that may be connected to what's going on in the Middle East. It's like, why are you here? They don't really say. My guess is maybe he was hiding in one of those, but when shit started going south, he was just trying to get out, and maybe they just like cornered him, I guess. I don't genuinely know. I don't think they explained
That
it
was
very well.
the peak of so we're just writing to get to the next plot point, which is fine because this game is a series of cool moments,
Yeah,
but like that was somebody you chased through the whole beginning of the game, and they met to play with your emotions. I mean, he shot you in the head earlier in the game in first person, and now he's just sitting in a barn in a chair getting beat up by Price.
And then he gets shot in the head. Yeah. It's probably just to keep the pacing up, because I think this game has very, very, very good pacing. Like there's very little downtime. Like some of the other games in the series have their downtime moments, but this game really doesn't at all. The closest to it would be this mission all gillied up. So probably my favorite level in the game. I think if I had to pick one, that's probably the one. I loved it when I was a kid. I used to replay it all the time. And even now when I would play it, I kind of replayed it a couple times just because it's that well done. So this mission takes place 15 years prior. So the game canonically takes place in 2011. So this mission is in 1996. So, yeah. Where we are now Captain Price, when he was just a lieutenant or a lieutenant at the time, and he's under the orders of one Captain McMillan, who is honestly one of my favorite characters in the entire series, despite him only really being in this game. He's kind of in a game in the future, but not to the same degree as this one. But I love McMillan. He's Scottish. He's trying to be like, we need to be stealthy, but he can't stop talking. Just being a Scottish dude. My favorite bit is when he hits that one guy and says, "Oi, Susie."
Oi, Susie.
That's how it's done.
Always love that bit. But anyways, you and him are both decked out, are snipers decked out in what they call a ghillie suit. And for those who don't know what a ghillie suit is, it's a type of camouflage where you're wearing this like real big baggy suit with like a giant kind of hat, and you cover it in like leaves, grass, and all other kinds of foliage in order to sort of blend in with your surroundings. And they kind of show off how well it works in the very start of the mission, where you're just kind of standing in an empty field, and then like just off of your eyesight, you see McMillan kind of rise up out of prone, and you're like, holy shit, he was there the whole time. And it shows kind of how good the ghillie suits are. And so this one, for the most part, you're just trying to sneak through everything. That's sort of the whole point of the mission. There are some enemies you kind of have to kill with your suppressed M21, but a lot of times McMillan will be like, oh, you can pass. You can just let him pass, your call. And a lot of times it's better just to let them pass, because I've played through this mission so much. I've seen so many different scenarios happen. Like, I've snuck through the whole thing undetected, which always feels good. I've had moments where it's like, oh, the enemy sees one of the dead bodies you shot, or you miss a shot and it whizzes by a dude's head and he's like, what the fuck? And then like everybody comes out to to kill you, like the dogs and everything. I've shot down the helicopter with the rocket launcher, which you can do. Not recommended, but you can do it. And then sometimes McMillan will be like, "Oh, you don't know anything about stealth, do you? Or is this your idea of stealth?" Or when you shoot down the helicopter, he's like, "Now you're just showing off."
Yeah,
Like all these little kind of quirks that they put into the mission to give it all that character.
yeah, and it's stuff that if you played a lot of Call of Duty before this, it's stuff you couldn't do because, historically there weren't silencers in World War II, or not, this kind where you could,
Not normally, no.
shoot guys from hundreds of yards away and not get noticed. It was you took a shot and they heard the gun, especially a high, like a large rifle that you would need for any sort of distance shooting. So yeah, cool. It was they finally nailed. This is why we wanted to do a modern game. Look at all this cool stuff we can do with modern warfare. Modern guns, modern technology, and it was. But just in a small scale, you and one other guy doing, and maybe this is the first game that had double headshots where it's like take out the guy on the left, I'll take out the guy on the right. It's the first one I played that was like that, which is cool. Moments.
Yeah, it's the first one I can remember too. And I love with some of those, you can just kind of pick whoever, and McMillan will just take the other one. He's just like, good night. And the highlights for me were like, when you're in the open field and you have to go prone because the whole patrol is slowly coming towards you. And McMillan's like, you might have to shift slowly to the left or right to avoid people. But always what I did, I just parked my head right into his fucking gooch because they're not going to come into that lane, because McMillan's right there. So that's what I always did. And then probably my favorite part is when you get past all of the shipping crates, then you have to like kind of run through like a little just a little moment where nobody's seeing you, hit prone and then crawl under all the trucks, especially as some are coming up and parking, and then you have to run right out. I loved that part. Like the music in that part, like those heavy percussive drums are just so well done. And yeah, again, it's new stuff that they couldn't have done in World War II, or even other historical periods, like say if they did like a Vietnam game, which they never officially did Vietnam, but again, that'll come in the future. So yeah, but it's all done really well, and then you kind of sneak up into where you need to be, like just the top of a random building. And I believe this mission, it's taking place in, I forget the name of the town, but it was like an abandoned town that I think was affected by Chernobyl. Yep. Like it's not Chernobyl itself, but it's like a town that was near it, and it's based on a real world city. Let me see if I can pull up the name of it real quick.
Yeah, it's outside because they have that the Ferris wheel thing is very like that's still a tourist picture thing. Like I don't,
like that's there at like the like at the real town.
And I like that they spit out the tagline too.
I'm not gonna say that right. It's
55 million people used to live in this place, so now it's a ghost town.
It.
Like that they do at the beginning of the game or whatever.
Look at this place. 50,000 people used to live in the city. Now it's a ghost town. Never seen anything like it.
Oh, and it's in like the trailer and everything. Yeah, it's Pripyat, Pripyat. I can't say that right. It's in the Ukraine. And it was a town it was named after the nearby river. It was located north of Chernobyl. It was officially proclaimed a city in 1979 and had a population to almost 50,000. And by the time it was evacuated, one day after the Chernobyl disaster, and now, it kind of sits as an abandoned town. And if you go to the Wikipedia page and look at like various pictures of the town, you will see like the Ferris wheel, certain abandoned buildings that are like the game replicates pretty much identically here. So you kind of get like an interesting tour of the whole city. So, and I imagine it probably is a bit of a tourist trap, especially these days. But I imagine even back then, people were just like, oh, it's fascinating to look at these like kind of abandoned towns, But it leads right into the very next mission, one shot, one kill. So you get to where you're going to sit for the sniping mission, and about 3 days go by, and then you see Zakayev meeting up to sell uranium to the ultranationalists, right? So you get into the Barrett 50 cal, and and you're sitting there planning your shot, and they do the thing where the wind is blowing in, so you can kind of direct your shot. The helicopter gets in the way. And I remember as a kid, I always found this moment really tense, and I used to fuck it up all the time. And I think it's because I would either wait too long or I would just get anxious and just try to do it right away. When really, like when I replayed it now, the few times I did, basically if you just wait till McMillan says just take the shot, you'll hit him every time. Because that's like right when the wind dies down, he's like, hey, just go for it now. You'll smack him.
Yeah.
So, did you ever fuck this mission
Oh,
up?
yeah. I fucked it up on purpose just 2 days ago just to see what other things could happen. And, you can purposely wait till the wind is blowing like way to the west, and you can shoot to the right and watch you wouldn't be able to see a bullet stream in real life, but you can see it in the game. You can see your bullet, dip and move, and so it's that some of that stuff's cool. The line about the like Coriolis effect is like, it feels like it's dumb here because it's too smart. Well, first of all, it's not. If you watch enough Mythbusters or like it doesn't affect a shot at this. The curvature of the Earth isn't screwing up bullet.
What is the Coriolis effect? I don't even know what that is.
It's the Earth spinning and the curvature of the Earth affecting bullet path, which is not like, if you're shooting miles, which is not what somebody does, but like then maybe. But the only thing that really happens at this distance is bullet drop. Maybe the wind a little bit, but like just watch that Marky Mark Wahlberg movie with the ghillie suits and stuff too. He talks about it in there too, but the core audience of Call of Duty is not going to like go look up the Coriolis effect while they're playing this video game,
Shit. I got astray on that one. Because I feel like bullet drop that has more to do with gravity than the curvature.
It does.
Of the Earth.
That's what I mean. The only thing that really affects
that's just Newton's first law.
They were trying to make this mission seem smarter than it was.
That's just Newton's first law. Yeah, well, I feel like the Coriolis effect, the way you describe it, it sounds like it was invented by people who think the Earth is flat because when they're in a plane, they don't see the curve of the Earth.
Well, it's real, but like,
so like, oh,
it's real.
Flat.
It's just it has nothing to do with like a couple 100-yard sniper shot. Like
it probably has more to do with like planes when you're flying a plane like
Correct.
thousands of miles. It probably has more of an effect there. Yeah. So, but anyway, thanks for the history lesson. Or the education. I feel more educated. Anyways, so you pop off his arm. Apparently, off to the corner is I forget who it is, but there's somebody in another car that if you shoot them, you can create a time paradox. It says kill Makarov and complete your mission. So you can just kill Makarov. Oh, Makarov, he's a guy who appears later in the series, actually. So that's probably why it didn't apply to the original game, because I believe Makarov shows up in Modern Warfare 3. But in the remaster, they're like, oh, he's right there, so you could kill him there and create the time paradox. But anyways, so yeah, it doesn't matter where you hit Zakayev, his right arm flies, or his left arm flies off. Doesn't matter where you hit him. I hit him in the nuts once, and his arm flew off. And then, like, that helicopter comes right in your path, and then you shoot him down immediately. I always thought that was hilarious, where it's like the helicopter's just slowly coming in, like it's like Jaws, like 3D or whatever, and you just shoot it, and it immediately topples. And they're like, we have to get the fuck out of here, and then you get out of there. And then the rest of the mission of one shot, one kill is very intense, and I love it because it's done so well, especially on harder difficulties. Like, I normally would play this game on like regular or whatever, but I played through the original on hardened so I could get the achievement. And really, this is probably the hardest mission that I had to deal with, because the enemies just come at you full force. You can keep your sniper, but really the game wants you to like swap your pistol for like an assault rifle or more kind of automatic weapon. And for me, it was that kind of initial moment of getting to the main apartment block. Like, once I got past that, I could kind of get to the final section pretty easily. Because, you go through various apartment blocks, and then you shoot down another helicopter, or at least McMillan does. And I love when he shoots it down. He tries to do like the action movie thing of like slowly walking away from it before he realizes it's actually coming towards him, and then he somehow gets injured in that. I never quite understood that because like the helicopter doesn't land on him. It just kind of lands and skids right up to him, and he just like kind of trips, I guess. Like, does he like twist his
No,
ankle?
it looks
or
like
something?
if you. So maybe I was just paying really close attention. It looks like he like stops the blade with his leg. Like once the blades are digging into the ground. So
Yeah.
that's what I assumed is maybe he just cut up his leg real bad from the blade slapping in the ground next to him, and then that's why you got to carry him.
Maybe, but it was starting to slow down by that point.
Yeah, but it wouldn't have to be going
And-
very fast.
I don't know. They could have been like, "Oh, the blade
Yeah.
got my leg."
They could have said something.
Yeah, true. I'm not familiar with helicopter blades, so I don't know how sharp they are. So maybe they are that sharp. But anyways, then you have to like carry him on your back through a good chunk of the mission now. And I remember as a kid, it used to freak me out because I was like, "Oh, they're gonna come at any points," and then you can always drop him
Yeah.
and he'll shoot. Like he can't shoot while you're carrying him, even though he has a pistol. He could just do that, but whatever, right? Details. But you put him down and he can like snipe people and you can keep going. In fact, most of the time when I did it now, how I figured it out was I would just kind of sneak around everybody. And you can and like not get seen at all, which is great. But once you hit that second apartment block, you're pretty much good no matter what. And then you go through that whole thing, and then you get to where the Ferris wheel is, because then that's when the helicopter's going to come and pick you up. And then you have your final stand bit, which is you put McMillan on a very specific piece of grass, and the game gives you the option to like lay as many claymores down
Which
as
you should
want,
do.
which
You- no,
can
you had-
help. Yeah, you should do, especially if you're playing it on hardened or veteran. I will say playing it on recruit is hilarious because it is so easy. You can just run around and just pop people like boop 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 boop. But yeah, like on hardened, oh my fucking god, it was ridiculous. Like if any dude gets on the Ferris wheel, you're basically fucked. Like if you're actually trying to lay in the grass and be prone, like they'll get to the Ferris wheel, they'll automatically know where you are and will just
Yeah. I went behind the
it can be a pain.
I
No,
went behind
like,
the bumper cars. So then you only have to look one direction, and
Yeah.
then having the claymores, if you put them next to the cars, or if you have C4 left over, you can put C4 on the cars. It definitely cuts down the number of guys because as
Yeah.
they get off those, because they're like coming down on the ropes from the helicopters. You can blow up the cars just as they hit the ground, and it like eradicates a whole pile of them because they'd all landed in that one little spot. So that's what I always do, because not just this mission, but a lot of missions, especially if you're playing on the hardest two difficulties, cars are your biggest enemy because they don't tell you that they're going to explode unless you're staring
Yes.
from like 50 yards away and can see the smoke coming and it's starting on fire. You don't know when you're prone behind the car that it's going to blow up and kill you. And then they rub salt in the wound, and tell you like you should get away from cars before they explode, like in the desk.
It's like when you die from a grenade and they're like, watch for the grenade indicator.
I'm gonna
It's like, that's what
I'm gonna
that
shut the
means.
game off now.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like fucking annoying pricks, yeah. But if you're able to, I know when I did this on hardened, it took me many tries to figure it out. But yeah, eventually I did the same thing. I would just kind of hide in the corner behind the bumper cars with an AK and just shoot everybody who came in my way. Because like even if the enemies get right up on McMillan, they can't kill him. And I feel like that was an intentional game design choice because my guess is they probably made it to where he could die earlier, and we're like, oh, this is impossible.
Yeah.
Like because he's just sitting there. He's not laying prone, and he can only snipe so much. And I feel like eventually somebody would just snag him.
Yeah. And that's like that's like an important beat for me in this game too, because then you realize, oh, the named guys aren't going to die in any mission. So all of the tougher SAS ones after this, you just protect yourself, and you don't have I realized, oh, I don't have to worry about anybody else because they're not going to die. It doesn't matter. But
yeah, they got plot armor.
Perfect.
Yeah, defend yourself with the plot armor. And in this mission, there is like the hardest piece of intel to find, like those little like laptops you find. In the remaster, I got all 30. In the original, I haven't gone back and tried. in this section, there is like one little door that you have to be kind of positioned in a specific spot to where it'll fly open, and there is a piece of intel in there. But you can't sit there and stare at it and hope it opens up. It won't work. You have to, like, position yourself in a very specific spot. And when I was doing the original, I tried so many times to get that fucking door to open. I just couldn't do it. But then when I got to the remaster, I was like, what do I have to do? And somebody was like, okay, just hide in this, like, real specific spot for, like, a couple minutes, and then you'll see some more enemies come from this side that indicates the door is open so you can go in and grab it. So I'll probably go back and do that for the original because it's the only one I'm missing. But anyways, the helicopter comes, you grab McMillan, you get in. Though you can, if you wait too long, they'll say, fuck it, we gotta go, and just leave you there, which is hilarious. But if you get in, you are saved. And then we cut back to the present day with the mission Heat, which implies we're in some heat, and we are, because we're back at the safe house location we were in. They fortified it with all these sort of defenses and everything, because they're expecting a counterattack. And sure enough, one happens. And you blow up a bunch of stuff. You fend off a bunch of guys. You can find RPGs in the top of the tower and blow up helicopters, which is great. And you keep moving back, and then you get to the barn, right? The same barn that Al-Assad was in. You javelin a bunch of tanks, and they're like, we need to get out of here. And they're like, that place is too hot. We can't come in. It's like, oh, where can we come in? At the gas station on the other side of the map. And they're like, we have to go fucking through that to get here. So you then, what I always did, I just fucking bum rushed through everything and wouldn't get hit. Most of the time I didn't get hit. And then when I beat it on hardened, I literally bum rushed through the whole thing. And then I just kind of hide in the gas station until everybody shows up. And then I know I'm
Yep, that's exactly what I was saying
it
about
seemed to work.
plot armor. Because you would just, if you didn't die, your troops would eventually, your whole squad would eventually roll to whatever building you were in. So it was just getting somewhere, hiding in a basement, hiding under, like, by a desk and prone, and just waiting until you saw feet that weren't trying to shoot you. And yeah, you could get down that way.
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of in Call of Duty 2 at the end of the part where the British are in France and you have to, like, defend that safe house you just captured. They'll put a time. They're like, oh, hold it for, like, this long of a time. And what I would do is just hide in the basement, and if any, like, Nazis came in the door, I would just shoot them. And just sit there until it was done. So, but the game gets rid of those kind of time mechanics, which I think is probably for the best. But we have some later. But anyways, we move on to now Sins of the Father, as we are now attempting to capture Viktor Zakayev, who's the son of Imran, because we believe he knows where his father is. So you start the mission securing a gas station overnight, so that his convoy can, like, get trapped in there. You, like, don all of their gear and everything. Shit goes crazy. You're sitting on top of the little tower with your sniper, but they're like, don't shoot him, obviously. But your tower topples over, and then as you're laying there, you kind of see Victor in the same tracksuit he was wearing earlier, the exact same one. Just kind of, like, say, fuck it, and just, like, bum rushes, and then you chase after him. And I love this bit when you're chasing after him. It's very well done. And then you corner him at the very top of, like, an apartment building, and they're like, Soap, restrain him and get his gun. They want you to do it, of course, right? Plot reasons. But as you're going up to him, he just, blasts himself in the head before you can capture him. Great, right? And then Imran finds out about this, that, his son is dead, and I guess he just assumes you guys shot him, but, I guess that doesn't matter. But this causes him to capture a missile silo and then threaten to shoot the east coast of the U.S., So this starts the beginning of Act 3, which is the SAS and the remaining guys of the Marines, like Griggs and all that, like, coming together to stop the big bad guy, right? So this is, like, the big cinematic climax, really. So you parachute in, Griggs gets captured during the parachuting, so you go rescue him, and then you blow up an electric tower, which I believe is to cut off the electricity so you can sneak in, I guess, or it's to take down the electric fence or something like that. And this is where it kind of the SAS guys get involved in like the American style missions earlier, where you're just kind of roaming through, blowing up everything in sight. You know, like you've done all the stealthy stuff, but it's like the further in you get, it's like, well, we can't keep doing stealthy stuff the whole game, especially when you're disrupting everything. They're all going to come at you, so it just kind of makes sense to have those bigger moments. Yeah. And then you get to the silo bit, and then you watch 2 missiles basically launch in the air, and then they're like, "Oh, those are aimed at the east coast of the U.S. Like 42 million people are going to die," or some very specific number. They use a very specific number. I think it's to probably show like the more kind of like, I guess, the military side, where they would calculate the exact number.
See, I thought it was more, this is why we go into the Middle East and kill everybody, because look at, if we let the Middle East get nukes, a nuke hitting the east coast of the United States would kill so many more people than a nuclear blast, or us firing nukes into the long range missiles into the Middle East. That only kills a couple hundred people. Like, look what would happen if DC and New York and Virginia and stuff were gonna get shot with the same type of missiles. Look how many people would die.
Those poor bastards in Norfolk, Virginia.
Yeah, that was
So yeah. But anyways, you find that out, and they're like, "Oh shit, we have to, get into the war room and take the codes out." And then that's when the timer comes on, where you have to kind of run through the corridors and shoot as many ultranationalist guys as you can to get to the end. And this was another part that on Hardened, it was fucking ridiculous, because there's that one spot where you go around a corner and there's like a straight hallway, but it's being blocked off, so you can't go straight through it. And it has the 2 little cutoff points, and you'll see some guys shooting straight through, but then at the ends of both sides are 2 guys, right? And it took me forever to figure out how to actually take them both out so I could keep going through. And because really, this is the part where in Hardened, I realized it was already happening, but it really hits here where, like, if an enemy just starts unloading into you, you cannot aim to, like, retaliate back, because your cursor just flies all over the place, so it encourages you to hide. But it's hard to hide when there's, like, you're trying to shoot a guy here, but there's a guy from the back hitting you, and then the front. A fucking mess. But anyways, you get through all of that, and then I forget how you get the abort codes. Or do you just have them?
This is where I was when we started our call
part
today, and we were chit-chatting, and I said, I'm going back and beating the game on the hardest difficulty. This is exactly where I was, getting pelted the same way you were and getting frustrated. So I may have some blood filters on my eyes at this point of the game, because
because it just really gets fucking nuts with you. But like, it's interesting how Infinity Ward and Treyarch treat veteran difficulty differently, but I'll discuss that when I get to the next episode. But anyways, you get the abort, you somehow find the abort codes, you put them in, and they're like, "Oh, we'll hold anybody off who tries to shoot you." And as far as I know, nobody comes and tries to shoot you. So why they put that little bar for you to do it doesn't really make any sense. But whatever, you do it, and then the missiles blow up. Though I do like that the game doesn't show you that. They're just like, "Oh, they blow up. They're mostly falling in the ocean. Everything's fine." It's like, well, what about the ones that aren't?
Yeah,
they don't mention
what do you mean
that.
Mostly?
Yeah, they say mostly. But I do appreciate they don't like show you it in any kind of like cinematic thing. It just kind of keeps you in ground with what's happening. But you do that, and then they're like, "Oh, well, we need to get the fuck out of here." And then you blaze the fuck out of there for the final mission, where you're sitting on the back of a Jeep, just shooting everybody that's getting in your way, trying to blow up a helicopter that's following you. I don't think you can hit that helicopter at all. I don't think there's really any possibility of that. But then you get to the end, your Jeep crashes, like the highway starts fucking caving in, but you're able to climb out of it just in time, fight off more guys, and then a big explosion happens. You're laying there. You see Zakayev shooting people. He kills Gaz. R.I.P. to Gaz. Price is able to slide over a pistol to you. You one-shot him and, shoot 2 other guys, and then that's basically the game. You get saved, and, you get pulled out, and, mission complete, kids. You did it. Fantastic. And then the credits roll, and everything feels great. But we're not done yet. We have one more mission called Mile High Club, which I believe is another famous mission from the game. Yep. It's kind of just this little short insurgent mission. It reminds me of like Crew Expendable, but a lot more intense, where you have to, with flashbangs and a silenced MP5, get through an entire plane. It's like one of those like 2-story planes, those kind of things, to save just some guy. You save some guy. It does the slow-mo thing where you have to shoot him in the head. Well, you can shoot him in the leg on the lower difficulties, but I believe on Veteran, if you try the leg, they're like, real one, shoot him in the head or some bullshit or whatever. But you do that, you get the guy, you jump out of the plane blows up, mission complete. Just a random thing they threw in at the end. And as far as I know, it doesn't have implications in the story later on at all. Like, whatever research I did, it's not like, oh, it shows up in this game as like this thing that happened. They never connect it. It's just kind of a thing they throw in there. But it's a neat little end mission that I've never beaten on Veteran, because they shorten the amount of time you get on every difficulty. I was able to do it on Hardened, which was difficult, but on Veteran you get like a minute to do it. So, did you ever do it on Veteran?
No, I hadn't got there this morning. I got the 2 missions before that. So right where we were talking about the disarming the bomb, I didn't get to the tank one on Veteran or the one in the sky on Veteran. But the game really like loses it for me at this point anyway, because
when you
like, from the point you kill Zakhaev's son till the end of the game, like it just feels too like Last Action Hero-y anyway, and it's much more like you said, like the Marine stuff at the beginning of the game, where it
turns into Commando.
you just
basically a different Schwarzenegger
a bunch of unstoppable motherfuckers style stuff, and like it, it's cool and it looks good on the screen, but like I'm not like motivated to go back, and I might after we finish the recording go finish it up, but like the frustration levels later on are pretty high. So.
Yeah. And that point, I feel like they think they can do all that stuff because they've earned it, because they did all the stealthy stuff and kind of took their time to try to build up to it, so that when the characters that we actually stick with through the rest of the game, once they get to it, it feels more like a proper build up. And in some ways, I think it does a better job of it. But yeah, it does. It feels less like Murica and more just like action movie.
Yeah.
Like this is like the ending of like a fucking Bond movie. It kind of has that vibe to it. So, but that's the end of the single player campaign, and I think overall it's pretty good, and I think it holds up fairly well. What do you think?
I liked it. Not as much as I like multiplayer. It's probably one of the better campaigns of a like this style or this genre that I've played. And I haven't played a ton of them, but like you said, compared to the Battlefield games and the Medal of Honor games, and I guess the Tom Clancy ones were pretty good. Vegas wasn't the bestest, but like the 2 people like what were those? Ghost Recon.
I'm a Vegas fanboy, dude. I love those games to death.
I just never clicked with them. Like Ghost Recon was fine, but I never really thought of that.
That's fair.
Thought of it as like that was like a tactical shooter, I guess, and not a like first person action modern shooter. So.
Yeah, because the earlier Ghost Recons were focused more on like the tactics and all that stuff, and then like with Advanced Warfighter, that was when they tried to do like the more cinematic third person shooter with light tactical elements, and then like Future Soldier is basically just a straight third person shooter with even lighter tactical elements, really. And then they reinvent themselves with Wildlands, but Vegas, to me, I love the Rainbow Six Vegas games because it felt like they looked at what Call of Duty was doing, and were like, oh, how do we take that but kind of give our own little spin on it? Because you still have like the setting up the doors and doing the whole thing where you blow up the door and go in, and you can go in silent, you can go in loud. It gives you all different kind of options to approach certain situations. It gives you more control over it, as opposed to COD, where you could argue it's just a shooting gallery, but it's a fun shooting gallery, I'd say. And while it's not my favorite campaign in the series, I would say for the most part it still kind of does its job of just having real good pacing, and if you're playing them chronologically as I am, when you get to this point, it's like, oh, thank God, finally something a little bit different. But yeah, I think that kind of moves into, I guess we can talk about the rest of it, just like, the overall gameplay. What impresses me about Modern Warfare is that it still feels as good as it did back in 2007. Like, I feel like first-person shooters haven't evolved much past this game, because it feels like COD really got it right here, and basically every other game in the series controls the exact same. Like, I've played some of the more modern ones just to kind of test them out, and yeah, it's like everything is where you think it is, and it still feels the same. I mean, there's some refinements, a little bit smoothing, but really 4 to me feels just as good now as it did back in 2007.
Yeah, I really enjoyed going back to it. So right after this we had World at War and then Modern Warfare 2. And I remember playing those games, but not nearly as vividly as I remember playing this one. In fact, I'm pretty certain I only bought World at War to play with a couple specific friends who weren't always online playing the other Modern Warfare. So it was like a stopgap game, because I don't remember anything about the campaign of that game.
Yeah.
And honestly, not like playing through the single player of this, I remember all of the multiplayer levels, but not any of the World at War ones. And honestly, not really much of the Modern Warfare 2 ones. I remember more of the Modern Warfare 2 campaign than I remember the multiplayer levels. So like this one stuck with me because, like you said, I think it's the pioneer. Yeah. Like it was the one. From this point, this game came out and I realized what I liked about shooters, and I moved on to Borderlands for multiplayer stuff and having fun, and then I went to Hitman for the other stuff, the single player stuff that I really enjoyed about this game, which was finding quiet ways to finish missions and creative ways to do things. So this game is important for me, not because of just the game itself, but the things that I pulled from it that I liked, like in video games moving forward. So
yeah, because this really is sort of like you could say it's like the big bang for what first-person shooters would end up becoming, and that all the games before it are almost kind of like prehistory. Because like as you said, like the multiplayer was such a big deal, and games to this day still copy it, probably almost to its detriment. But I think that's another thing. But also, not to take away from any other games, because it would be unfair to say, but I think like this game did a lot to help push stealth elements in games becoming more popular and mainstream. Like, I mean, there was a bunch of others who did better jobs with it, like Splinter Cell and Metal Gear, obviously. But I think this game was such a big mainstream success that seeing, missions where it's like, oh, they encourage you to be stealthy and to avoid stuff, that I think for a lot of people, they hadn't played games that could do that before. Even though Metal Gear was, successful and all that, it really wasn't like mainstream. It was like if you were in the know, you knew about Metal Gear. But I imagine most casual people didn't know anything about it. And it probably helped push that series to become more successful as well, because people were like, oh, I like the stealth stuff. What other stealth games are there? And then, they look into that. And yeah, like with shooters, because when I play this game, I think about Respawn, and I think about Titanfall, specifically Titanfall 2. I don't know if you
a little bit.
Titanfall
I remember that the training mission in Titanfall 2 was cool, like this one was. I think people still like speedrun that too.
Yeah,
much like this one, but
I didn't
play a ton of it.
Yeah, like this game. Yeah, like this game to me has a lot of parallels to Titanfall 2. I mean, obviously, the main guys in Infinity Ward moved on to Respawn. I will talk about that later because that's a whole story. And Titanfall 2, like, the campaign is so beloved, and I've played through it, and I love it as well. And I think one of the reasons it is so good is because it takes a lot of the cues from the original Modern Warfare and what made that campaign work so well. And with it being this kind of sci-fi experience, you know, they don't have to deal with like tackling modern current political issues and can just kind of let the game be what it is. And it shows that they had learned a lot from those earlier games as well. And, you know, this is now just me sounding like, go play Titanfall 2. Just go play that game. It's fucking fantastic. So, but it kind of leads into, you know, the topic that I had mentioned to you, and I kind of wanted to bring it up here because I had mentioned it in some of the earlier episodes, but I think from here on it becomes a major talking point, and that is Call of Duty pro or anti-war? It's like looking it up online, there are so many articles going one way or the other, and most people avoid the World War II stuff, and I think that's fair because it's easy to say with those that like, oh, it's just Nazis bad, we're only doing it because the Nazis forced us to. You know, you can easily make those games anti-war because it's like the last justifiable conflict in American history. Because then from then on, everything gets kind of muddied, right? And this game does muddy the water, I think. And I had seen one video where their idea of this being pro or anti-war comes down to sort of how you perceive it, where in a lot of ways it feels like this game isn't necessarily making a stance one way or the other. Maybe it is subconsciously, you know, like it's kind of hard to avoid some sort of implicit biases, especially if you're an American making a game about modern military combat. It's kind of, I think a lot of us kind of fall into those specific traps because we've been fed all this propaganda about certain things, right? But I think this game, I don't think it's really pro or anti-war. I think it kind of falls on this weird line where it sways one way or the other, kind of how, depending on how you perceive it. You know what I mean? Where like there's evidence to say, oh, it's pro-war because it does this and this, but then you could say, oh, it's secretly anti-war because of this and this, right? Like kind of how you perceive the whole nuke situation, right? Like, if you see the nuke as like, oh, this is the game subtly justifying the invasion of Iraq because they're like, oh, this is what's going to happen because of the whole weapons of mass destruction shit, right? Like, you could say it's pro-war because of that. Or you could say it's anti-war because it's like, oh, the military is well in over their heads and doing all this really dumb shit for no reason, and they're getting people killed because of it, which could be like a more subtle anti-war message, right? I think it just comes down to how you think of it one way or the other. There are games later in the series I know go way heavier into the pro-war stuff, and I will cover that when we get there, because there is one specific moment later in the series that honestly makes my stomach turn. But I'll get to that. But Quest, how would you perceive this one?
So,
or at least in this sort of conversation.
So I don't think Infinity Ward made a pro-war game, but I definitely think that the game is pro-war and was then marketed pro-war. Like you said, this was during the waning popularity of George W. Bush, because we had been in the Middle East for how long, and you know, what was the reason we were there? It was to find the nukes, and the only thing that the Middle East didn't have were the nukes. So then you make a game that where the Middle East has the nukes, and look at it, it's our wet dream of our presidents, you know, all coming together in this video game. And I don't think Infinity Ward was thinking about that, but I guarantee the United States military was, because when you look back, if you go back and buy some magazines, which I like to do, EGM, Game Informer, games like, they had join them like full page Marine spreads in the magazines with pull out cards to mail in and get your documentation started to join the military, join the Army, join the Marines, in the magazines that were promoting this game or covering this game, because people were so excited about it. I mean, I have a family member, I have a sister-in-law that joined, she's the same age as me. join the military during this time. It wasn't because of Call of Duty, but it is because of the like astroturfing that the military was doing because this game was so popular. So it was like, look how cool it is to do this stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't think that Infinity Ward did that, but I do think that this game did that. It was pro military because of the way it was shown in media.
But do you think that's more of just like a result of, like, say the U.S. military seeing this and trying to jump on it in order to sort of change the messaging? Because I think if it was more like quote unquote pro-war, I feel like the mission would be like, oh, you find the nukes, you stop them, you save everybody, look how great we are. Like, we did the mission, right? Like, I don't necessarily think a pro-war game would have like, oh, the nuke going off and killing everybody, and then subtly implying that the U.S. is being stupid and doing what they're doing, and saying like, oh, the only reason the nuke went off is because they showed up in the first place.
But you still have to be the American,
because I think the game is also subtly.
But you have to be the American hero and save you. I mean, yeah, the nuke went off, but it went off in the Middle East, and we don't care about the Middle East. Would you still have to finish the game and save the United States from further destruction because of the other weapons that have gone off? So you have to show that war is hell, and that
is true.
Bad things happen in war, and that, because war, like, okay, let's take a huge step back here. being in war, like, it's nothing like this video game, and that was part of the campaign. It's a lot of sitting around for days and weeks and months on end. And then you have like one day of intense firefighting, or an IED blows the wheel off of a Jeep and somebody gets killed, and you're on high alert for a couple weeks, and then you go back to just sitting around and playing cards and listening to satellites and watching for things to happen. So this game needs those intense moments to get people excited about what is a fairly mundane. It's a job. Being in the military is a job, and like
Yes, the military is a jobs program.
And
That's
this
really
game was used as the recruitment for a jobs program moving forward. And then the military did make video games after this point that were very specific.
They made them before as well, like that U.S. Army game. I remember that Army game.
But this was like you said, it's a turning point between when video games were about very political things that we were all agreed on, and turning to things right now are not apolitical, but we need people in the United States to have a stance on this, and look at the bad things that can happen. Look at the bad things that happen near the end of this video game. If you don't stop them, please join the Marines.
Yeah. Though I agree with you, I don't think Infinity War went that route. I don't think this game was necessarily made to be a recruitment tool. If anything, it was probably just the military seeing the popularity of this game and jumping on that to try to get some people, and they probably did. And I think as we get further into the series, it becomes more obvious at certain points where it's like, oh, this is very pro-American propaganda. Like, maybe they wanted to have an anti-war message in here, but they just kind of dropped the ball, because one thing they liked to do in the earlier games and in this one is like those death quotes, right? Where in the earlier games, the death quotes are all like, oh, war is bad because it's old guys sending young guys to die. The common stuff, but stuff that does, I think, need to be said, right? And there are a bunch of other games out there that I think are more explicitly anti-war in how they sort of present the whole situation. Like games like This War Is Mine, which is very obviously
and Spec Ops: The Line, but we're like 5 years away from that game at this point. We needed Call of Duty to do
Spec Ops,
a bunch of these games first before that game could hit as hard as it did. So.
and I love Spec Ops: The Line, but I feel like its anti-war message kind of becomes misguided in some ways, because I think they really wanted to do like an Apocalypse Now type game with that. And but like Apocalypse Now works because it's like Vietnam, right? And like the Iraq War is a much different conflict. I love Spec Ops Line. I think it's a great game, but I think why it took so long for that game to really hit is because I think its message didn't resonate well. And I think that just comes down to the writing just wasn't there. But I think you could say the same with Call of Duty 4, where if they were trying to make it anti-war, I don't think it worked because it's not explicitly that, right? Like, I could make the argument that the next game, World at War, is more explicitly anti-war for the way it kind of presents conflict, but again, I will save that for next time. But yeah, it's an interesting debate, I think. Because, I think it's easy to say it could be one or the other. And I think with this game in particular, I don't think it is explicitly one or the other. But I don't think it's necessarily apolitical either. I think they wanted to take politics out of it because, they don't explicitly name anything, but those implicit biases, as I mentioned, come back, and they're in there. And I think it was easy to have those because I remember back then seeing all that stuff about why we need to go to Iraq and, why we had to do the things that we did. And, like hell, do you remember, I don't know if you remember this, but like Disney Channel had very like pro Iraq war propaganda right after 9/11. I don't know if you remember that,
yes,
where they would have like Hillary Duff being like, this is why we need to do it because 9/11 was so bad. And it's like, looking back now and going, that was fucked up. That was like really weird, But like, as I said, I was in middle school, so I didn't have the perspective that I do now, obviously, right? Like, I'd be worried if I still had that same perspective. But I feel like you, being in your 20-somethings, you probably had a better idea of how things were than I did.
And that's why I like the game, because it was targeted at non-derogatory but your age group. This game was like for, I mean, it was for me too, but it was for people who could potentially, and that's why it was marketed that way,
preteen and teenage
that
boys,
could potentially go into the military and fight the wars that are currently happening, which is why the setting was so important of this, and why the setting of Spec Ops: The Line was, like you said, it may not have hit as hard as it did, but that's also because the setting was still current when that game came out. Like, we're still in Pakistan, Afghanistan. We're still in that war. So people like look at it with squinty eyes and being like, what exactly is this game trying to say to the southern states that are that are sending our good old boys over there? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
well, I think I think also Spec Ops: The Line, it came out like, it was like 2011, I think. So it was pretty late. And I think by the time it came out, I think people were kind of sick of those like modern
absolutely
military
they were.
shooters.
Yes.
And it was already based on a series, that had been out and just been kind of nothing. So there was really no precedent for it. And then this game just kind of does the weird twist that it does. And I think it was because nobody really anticipated that. And it had to take years for people to be like, oh, that game's trying to do... Oh, because I guarantee you everybody just saw that cover back in the day and just went, oh, it's just another one of those. Who cares?
I guarantee...
Right?
Yep.
They just kind of moved on.
I always say that about
2011,
this game.
Because by 2011, COD was the one.
Yeah, I say that about Spec Ops all the time, is that's a podcast game. Like, that is a game that has recently exploded in the last, whatever you want to say, 5 to 8 years, because people are looking for interesting things to cover. And back then, like you said, it just looked like another modern shooter that people passed over, that didn't get great reviews, and nobody really talked about, the story all that much, just the mechanics, because that was also what we were talking about in the game reviews.
Yeah,
so.
And I didn't learn about that game until many years later. And then back when it was still backwards compatible in the series, I bought it and played through it and did enjoy my time with it. And I was expecting it to have like a really strong anti-war message. And again, it kind of does, but I feel like it kind of, not to spoil it, but it kind of goes surreal near the end of the game. And I think that surrealism kind of takes you out of it.
Yeah.
Which, to give Call of Duty a little bit of credit, it never goes surreal. It always tries to stay grounded in reality, whatever it's trying to say.
This game
and
does.
If it's trying to go for the anti-war thing, this one does, because it's trying to stay grounded in reality to a degree. Because I know with the later ones, like I think Modern Warfare 2, again, I haven't played that campaign in a long time, but there are things I remember about it that I'm like, that's very weird. But, when I replay that one, that'll be interesting. So, but yeah, outside of that, like, as I said, I think the pacing is done really well. Storytelling could be better, but, you can only do so much with what you have, especially when your campaign's like 6 hours long, maybe. And then, like, graphically, it hasn't held up super well, but I always kind of liked the aesthetic of this game. But I think it's because back then it felt so advanced and, like, futuristic. And it's like, whoa, man, like, this looks fucking real as shit, right? Like, it doesn't hit that anymore. But for 2007, it hit really hard. And then the music, people don't really talk about the music, but it's like that main menu theme, that it's a very iconic piece of music. I mean, that's why it's the music stinger for the opening of this podcast, because it's like everybody knows that bit, right?
And even like
so, and then we'll lead
the menu music.
into,
Well, we're talking, we're not. It's not all multiplayer here, but those just the menu themes from like the multiplayer, like and the noises for when you get the kill streaks and the little music that plays in the background of that, like that's all burned into my head. Like it's not about like how good the score is, it's how like how memorable is it to your time playing it, and it was good. Like if it was bad, it would be laughably remembered as bad music, but it's not. Like it's good music.
Yeah. But it leads directly into the multiplayer that we were talking about before. And as we said, this is like revolutionary, pioneering, groundbreaking, all that good stuff. Like before this game came out, I remember I watched a video where somebody looked at a bunch of forum posts leading up to this game. And a lot of people were just like, oh, just going to be a game where you simulate shooting brown people. But, people were very down on it, right? Thinking it's just going to be kind of whatever. But then the beta came out, and the beta had 2 story missions and I think 2 or 3 multiplayer maps. And that's really when the word spread about how good the multiplayer was. And I don't know if necessarily they were expecting the multiplayer to take off the way that it did. Because all the other games had multiplayer and with a shooter, multiplayer, I feel like shooters are kind of like one of, if not the best multiplayer genre, because it's so easy to get in and you can have sort of that friendly competition with people, and it hits my dopamine in a way that a lot of other multiplayers don't. Like I'd mentioned with Vegas, I probably have thousands of hours in both games because I loved that multiplayer so fucking much. But with Call of Duty 4, it's really good. And I think why it is still really good is they had a completely separate development team working on the multiplayer. And it kind of shows as well, like kind of in how it's set up and all that. It doesn't feel like an afterthought. They're like, no, we should put some importance on this. And doing the things like adding the perks, kill streaks, adding in RPG elements, these little things, like ways of customizing your character more than just picking whatever gun, right? Because it used to be you would just pick what class, and then you just kind of dealt with whatever the class had, right? But here it's like, oh, you can unlock custom loadouts eventually. And then it's like, oh, I can go in and give myself whatever gun, whatever sidearm, look through the perks, see what those do, and trying to find like all different kinds of combinations in order to sort of cheese the game or, play it to your specific play style. And that's really where it became super, super addicting. So what was it about the multiplayer? I know you'd mentioned it earlier, but what was it that hit you so hard about it back in the day?
Well, like I said, I came from Counter-Strike before this, so having the same kind of so we played a lot of search and destroy in this game because Counter-Strike's base mode isn't deathmatch, or at least the ones I played were not deathmatch. It was terrorist, counter-terrorist. So the terrorists plant the bomb, the counter-terrorists defuse the bomb.
Yep.
So that's what we played. We played hardcore search and destroy on this for 1,000 hours, probably more. And that was, this was the first console game that hit the PC shooter spot that I had kind of parked myself in for so long. So being able to do things like, have stopping power or a UAV jammer and like claymores and using dead silence and the silence MP5 so I can plant the bombs and defuse the bombs with nobody finding me. It was great. That was like unlocking those things and being able to play with that play style is what really hooked me into this game. And then there's the people who played the exact opposite that were using like martyrdom and sonic boom and the the
stopping
rocket
power.
Yep, using the grenade launchers on the rifles and just shooting them at the beginning of the map.
Noob tubes,
Yeah, which was fine. It was fine because that got more people playing, and then when you drug them into the deep waters of like late game bomb planting and making them get sweaty, like that made the game even better. So the more different ways people played, the more you got them to play the way that I wanted to play in the games I want to play. So, this game,
Exactly.
it was a little for everybody. Like it did something like people who sniped. This is probably when we started between this and Modern Warfare 2 was probably the beginning of quick scoping and like no scopes, sniping.
Yep.
So at least on consoles, once again,
360 no scope.
Yep. It was like that on PC, but not because it's different gamers, This was the game that opened the door for those PC people.
Exactly. Yeah.
So awesome. Like I love.
Yeah. I feel for PC gamers, this multiplayer probably wasn't that like crazy or like new or whatever because there were other games with it before, but probably the progression system. Because I'm trying to think, was there another multiplayer shooter that had a similar progression system before this? Because I can't really think of one.
Not that I played. It scratched that itch that the weapon purchase system that Counter-Strike did, where the better you did, the more money you got, the cooler stuff you get, the longer you stay alive, the better. So that bred, this kind of play where staying alive, being quiet, not giving away position is good for the long game. You get more experience for surviving. You get more experience for planting the bomb, defusing the bomb, doing all that stuff. Yeah. So yeah, they just took it to a different level. And like you said, I don't think they thought, like I thought they were trying to, make a addicting loop to get people to keep playing. I don't think they thought it was going to be this big but they did it for
to
everybody.
Where people still play it to this day.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And like it's so crazy how in this series, like I've gone back to the older ones and most of the time, if I want to play a multiplayer match, I'm right in. Like, especially with this game, I could just hop in and play a match. Though playing on the older version nowadays, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to most people because you'll probably have like people who have like either like hacked the game or have gotten like so good at it they're just doing like if you hit a trick shot lobby, you're fucked. You might as well just get out. Because I don't think Modern Warfare 1 it didn't have all that crazy trick shot stuff. That was really the next Modern Warfare where like people would just like chuck knives, a throwing knife into the air, and somehow land on somebody. Like that's when that got really over the top. This one still had enough like kind of realism, quote unquote, to I think keep most people in. And even if you weren't a great player, you could probably still have a good match, and still do well against some of these more kind of crazy guys. Like I've never been great at it, but I forget what my rank was looking at it, but I was able to get decently far enough just with enough grinding. And I think most people were probably like me who are like, sometimes you'll have a good match, but most of the time you'll just die a lot from the guys who are just really fucking good. But it's just par for the course kind of a thing. But you can tell it was such a groundbreaking multiplayer because just about every shooter right after this copied it.
Yep.
Like to a fucking T. Like every game had like custom loadouts and RPG type progression and adding in perks and all this other stuff. It became the ground floor for what online shooters are today. Like I haven't played much Fortnite, but I wouldn't be surprised if Fortnite has some influence of Modern Warfare in it. Like I play Warzone from time to time, and Warzone, I mean, it lets you set up custom loadouts like before, even though you can only really get them if you like get a custom loadout drop. But Warzone's a whole nother story. But I feel like the multiplayer is more of the legacy of this game than anything else. Even though I think if we're gonna look at like legacy, it still kind of stands as one of the most popular and beloved shooters really of all time. Like I imagine if you look at lists where people rank the entire Call of Duty series, if this game isn't number one, it's in the top 3.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that really like the second one, but the whole like in-game kill cam and the customizable banners, and like you said, hucking knives and stuff at the beginning, like it kind of jumped the shark for me. I was always more of a realistic shooter kind of player, so this was the sweet spot for me. And then they had to do that. I'm not saying that that Infinity Ward did the wrong thing by making Modern Warfare 2 in that way, because it was huge. That game was enormous. But
they leaned into the silly, because they found out that silly was what kept people in. And it's like when people these days bitch about how silly and ridiculous modern Call of Duty is with having like Beavis and Butthead in there, it's like it starts here. Like that's like the legacy of them wanting to do that starts here with people finding all these crazy exploits and doing all the crazy shit. Though like quick scoping wasn't as nuts as what people would do later, but it was sort of the nucleus of that sort of thing. So, as I always say, if people are like, oh, I want to go back to how it was in Modern Warfare 2, it's like, buddy, it was just as silly then, if not more so. Like I remember playing, I mean, I don't want to talk too much about Modern Warfare 2, but I have so many memories of, like, when a game would start, like, everybody in the party would just take a knife and just, and just pray to God that it hit something. And I would run around with a noob tube. Like, I think I got kicked from so many lobbies just because I would just shoot the grenade launcher at everybody because it felt like it was my only way to defend all these, like, crazy high skill level players, so... But Modern Warfare 1 doesn't have that, really. I mean, there are grenade launchers and stuff, but it didn't feel as, like, crazy, like, high floor, high ceiling type of a game in comparison, But I think that's why people still enjoy it to this day, really. And it was enough for the game to get a fucking remaster. So I am going to touch on the remaster, as I had said, because I didn't want to do a whole nother episode on just the remaster of this game, because it's like, how much difference is there? If that's what you're wondering. The game looks better, sounds a lot better. It plays about the same, but it's a little bit smoother. The multiplayer is still there. In some ways, it's just as good, but also it's full of the modern, like, loot box shit and all this other crap. But if you just want to jump into the remaster and play the multiplayer just to play it, you'll probably think it's okay, but you probably won't like it as much as the original, just because of all the modern bullshit that they put on multiplayers these days. But the remaster for the background stuff, it released in 2016 for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. And originally, it was only available to those who had bought the special deluxe premium editions of Infinite Warfare, which was the modern Call of Duty at the time. And people were not happy about that because you essentially had to pay $80 to not only get Infinite Warfare, which is, well, I'll talk about that later, but you had to get if you wanted just the remaster of Modern Warfare. But by, I think it was the summer of 2017, they eventually made it to where you could just buy it individually. Though I think by that time is when they overhauled the multiplayer to add in like loot boxes and all that stuff, which is still there. But anyways, it remasters the entire campaign as well as the multiplayer. And I think the remaster is very good. Like, I honestly would say it's one of the best remasters ever made. And why I say that is because the remaster was done by Raven. And Raven Software, they had assistance from like Beanox, Certain Affinity, and High Moon, but they are handling the bulk of the remaster. And they do such an excellent job because while they'll update it in certain aspects, they still retain what made the original campaign the original campaign. So, like, you know, what made All Gillied Up, One Shot, One Kill, like all the Crew Expendable, like all those great missions, they still feel the exact same. And there are, like, the slight modernizations are, say, in the, as I said, the nuke cutscene where they change a couple things around to try to make it impact a little bit more. But outside of that, it's Modern Warfare again, baby. So I really like it. I think if you want to play the campaign, I say the remaster is honestly the way to go. I think they greatly improve on the campaign from the original. As far as the multiplayer goes, it's fine. It doesn't feel the same as the original. But it's these days, I think it's hard to experience what made the original multiplayer so good. You know, it's become one of those you had to be there, man, type of things, because the people who play it these days are like the weird hardcore people. You know, it's not a lot of just randos who want to just casually play Call of Duty 4. There's probably a few of those people, but not to the same degree. So I like the remaster. I do think it is worth your time if you're able to get it cheap for like $10 or whatever. Weirdly enough, how I was able to get it was I bought a used copy of Infinite Warfare that was like, oh, it's the edition with Modern Warfare on it, right? And when I went up to the counter, I was like, oh, it's cool that it's in there. And they're like, oh, it's probably like a download code and it's probably been used or whatever. So I was like, oh, I was kind of bummed out about that. But when I put the disc in, it installed Infinite Warfare and Modern Warfare Remaster. So if you do want to play it for a decently cheap price, go find a used copy of Infinite Warfare with it in it, because I'm pretty sure they just baked it on the disc, which is fantastic. I'm actually happy they did that and it wasn't just a fucking download code, because it's the natural thing to assume, right? It would just be that. So good on them. But I think it normally goes on sale for like $10 or something if you just want it digitally. So it is there if you want it. So, but yeah, anything else you want to cover about this quest? Any other tidbits?
No, I think that's it. So I played. I'm glad you asked me to come on. First of all, thank you for that. I like listening to your shows.
Oh, of course.
You and Bill are fun. I'm a big fan. So, but like, so there was a viral post going around recently that was like, like post the 10 games that made you, or that, and I put this in my 10 games, even though this isn't my genre, and it's for all these reasons. Like, this game, I think it like probably affected a lot more people than you would think looking back now, because now we think Call of Duty is a franchise and not like, it's, it's like the Madden of shooters. Now you just get another Call of Duty and then you just move on to the next one, and
absolutely,
and you just pump them all out. But this game was so important to so many people who didn't play console shooters, who didn't play Halo or didn't play, even Metal Gear. It covered so many things and did so much well that even though, like me, I'm not a huge fan of the industrial military complex and our current political situation, and like was old enough to know I wasn't a fan then, but it's still a great game. And great games can cover sensitive topics and influence people because they're great games. And that's just what this was. Like, it's just a great game, a great video game. So.
Yeah. Like I think people are allowed to appreciate like a video game for how it feels as a game, even if they're not a fan of like what it represents. Like you could almost say Call of Duty is a problematic fave, where you're like, I'm not a fan of the pro military stuff, but they're just so fun to play, kind of a thing. And yeah, like with this being the Madden of shooters, like this was the game that started that. I mean, it was already a yearly franchise, but Call of Duty went from being this like, oh, probably the best of a dying genre to the forefront of like the entire industry, really. Like when you think back on the 360 generation, I think most people think of Call of Duty like immediately, and even though it's still around now and it's still like the best-selling game every year pretty much, it doesn't have the same cultural cachet that it did then.
Yeah.
When like it was like the game, and this was kind of the start of it being the game, where Call of Duty is in talks with like Halo, and as like what was like the 360 game that year. I think everybody expected it to be Halo 3, but my guess is more people probably said it Call of Duty 4, man. Yeah. It's just really good. So and yeah, for the political stuff, it hit at a weird time where I think they were allowed to still kind of muddy the water without it being a big deal. Because like social media in 2007 wasn't really a thing yet. Like, it was around, but it was like MySpace, and like things hadn't become so reactionary to where I think a game like this now probably wouldn't wouldn't go down well, and probably for good reasons, I would say. But its legacy is undenied, really. Like, people still love it to this day. So I think that says a lot.
Yeah, and I feel like shooters have kind of like got that side stink eye on them now. So I play a lot of sports games, and I still today play a lot of sports games. We've talked about this a couple times now about.
Yeah. I love sports games too. I wish they were better.
But like in the circles that we are in, and just in social media, like you talked about, a lot of like it gets that like, oh, you play sports games, or oh, you play shooters. Like, yeah, I play good games regardless of the the subject matter. If a hockey game kicks ass, I'm going to play it and have fun.
They have that. Yeah, they have that like they're games for casuals, because like the circles we are in tend to favor like RPGs, Japanese games, platformers, the more kind of quirky stuff. And of course, we love those games. We're not denying those, but like, as much as I loved those games, I loved shooter games. I love sports games. I grew up with them. So I still have a connection to like the old Maddens on the Genesis, or, Rainbow Six Vegas, or even, why I'm doing a fucking Call of Duty series, because, I feel these games are just as worthy of being talked about, even if, we don't, even if a lot of the people in our circle just won't play them because it's just not their thing. They'd rather grind 80 hours in some anime weeb bullshit. Hey, that's fine. That's fine. I'm playing Persona 3 right now. I get it. So, and yeah, with like sports games, I do love them, but I love them for what they used to be and not really for what they are now, unfortunately. But that's because I'm like a football guy, and Madden has been terrible for a decade plus at this point, with no sign of that changing. So I kind of hold on to the past for those, but also I like golf games, and golf games can range in all different kinds of things, and I think that's what makes them so interesting, is that you can have like a hardcore simulator golf game, or like some crazy zany cartoony thing like What the Golf, or and those games are all enjoyable all the same. Like, I haven't played a lot of NHL or hockey games, so I can't comment that much on it, but I feel like there's a reason there isn't a crazy backlash on those, probably because they've been more consistently fine throughout the years compared to what Madden is, but also NHL isn't nearly as popular.
Yeah. And like we think, so I'm a big fan of roguelikes. I thank this game and games like this game and this generation for like that kind of thing, for short burst games. I played a lot of Counter-Strike, like I said, but those were long drawn out like multiplayer matches. Even like Battlefield 42 or 43? I can't remember which the really old style one on 360 was.
It was 42.
But that was the same thing. Like, a match took an hour minimum to go from start to finish with the huge teams. Whereas in this game, Modern Warfare, you could jump in, you could do 2 or 3 matches before work, after breakfast, or whatever. And now that, like, finally after years, we're seeing a resurgence of, let's go, do a run of a roguelike. Let's play, Slay the Spire or Hades or whatever you because short burst gaming is good for your psyche. Like, 8 hours of a video game is not great for you. Like, no matter what game it is.
It all comes back. 8 hours of Quest 64 is not good for you.
It's not.
You heard it here first, folks. But it all comes back to like that arcade style gameplay. Like, why arcades worked so well was that kind of short burst of excitement. And Call of Duty is that. Like, I mean, it has an arcade mode in it where you turn the missions into like, limited lives and score runs and all that stuff. And the way the game always felt, like, super fast paced, and like, if you're playing team deathmatch and multiplayer, sometimes you'll last like 5 seconds and then you'll go like, fuck, I need to get back in there. That kind of constant dopamine run. Like, it's what made those games work, and probably what makes roguelikes work so well also, even though those are trying to like get as far in as you can.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where that enjoyment comes from. But I've never been the biggest fan of roguelikes or whatever the fuck they're called. Some of them I like more than others. I think it's just I have to like the loop in order to constantly do it. I know people love Hades. It just never did it for me. Vampire Survivors I do not like at all. But I really liked Balatro. I really liked Inscription. So it can hit sometimes for me. But this game still hits for me as well. Eventually I'm going to do a tier list of all of these games, and I'm not sure if it's an S or an A. I feel like for historical context, it's deserving of the S, but I would put it in A only because there are other Call of Duty games I like more. There are ones coming later that I really enjoyed more than this one, for specific reasons that we'll get to. And plus, once we get past the 360 era, I've barely played any of those. So that is a completely
Same.
Untapped wasteland for me. So
Yep,
that's going to be interesting to
right
see.
Where I am.
I have a feeling there's going to be one random one in there that I'm going to be like, no, this one's actually really good. Y'all are just stupid. It's going to happen. I just don't know which one it's going to be. But we'll get there. So that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you again, Quest, for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So if y'all want to find Quest 64, I will. Do you want to plug yourself real quick before we get out of here?
But I don't do anything. I don't have anything to plug. I believe the last couple times people have asked me, I just said I'm an internet algorithm manipulator. I don't really I don't sell a product or or have my own stuff. I just mess with everybody else's stuff. So that's why I like being here with Thrak, because now I get to mess with his.
Well, exactly. We used to be villains, but now we're friends. We're enemies turned lovers.
Yeah.
I'll put the link to his Blue Sky account down there, so y'all can go check him out and enjoy him. And of course, the rest of the links will be down there. Thank you all for tuning in. And next time is going to be World at War. I have another guest lined up for that one, so that should be fun. And hopefully it'll come out quicker than the gap between this and the last one. So, but until then, everybody, bye-bye.